Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Life podcast. So, Luke Sellars was episode number 5, and for the last 3 or 4 months, he's been working with me and helping me deal with some of the emotional points of my life, like my personal life and my business, and trying to be a better business owner, trying to fulfill my destiny and get over some of the things that I'm struggling with and really establish it. And working with Luke has helped me open my eyes and see the hurricane that he talks about and be in that center now. I wish I could be centered there all the time. And, if Luke was here, he'd say, just be that, man. Just be that. Stop being the source of all your troubles. And so he's helped me, man, and we're on this spaceship flying around the sun, which is flying around the universe, and we're here together, and Luke's really helped me realize it and really enjoy life so much more. It becomes, what's funny is that, with Luke, he's really the number one emotion I feel, because more and more and more, not all the time, I wish I had it all the time, but the emotion in me that's grown the most after working with Luke is gratitude, man. I'm so thankful for the people in my life now, and so thankful for what we have here in Canada and in the West in general, in the Western world in general, and just for my children and for my wife and for my family and my coworkers, my employees, whatever you want to call them. I'm so thankful to have them in my life and to be working with them. And, even unpleasant situations, I take stock now, and I enjoy them in some ways. Like, I look at them and I laugh at me acting like an idiot, or I laugh at me. I enjoy the passion I put into things, and when I don't, I know why. So I hope you like my work with Luke Sellars. I'm going to be putting out somewhere between 6 and 10 episodes with meditations and with other things, and they're going to be mixed into my feed. So, yeah, folks, hopefully you like my show with Luke. And, hey, it may not be for everybody, but I think everybody should find the tiny space of the heart. So without any more delay, Luke Sellars and Michael Colligan. Welcome back, Luke Sellars.
Nice to be back, brother. Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
It's been about a week and a half now since we congregated there up at the palace. What a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful environment there, man. I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever leave.
You know what the thing is with living up there, the earthing is really easy to do.
Yeah.
And it actually, like, it's no effort to it. It's just like, okay, go out for a walk at night in your bare feet with the dog and walk around. It's, even since I started doing some meditations in the morning, and that this morning was really warm when I got up. And I was like, I was on my way to the gym, and sometimes I meditate at the gym. There's a little spot in the corner I'll sit.
Yep.
But instead, I just went outside in my bare feet, sat down in the dewy grass, and
it's nice, eh?
Yeah.
And that's one of the best ways to ground yourself to the earth is when the dew is on the grass, right? Because the conductivity of the water, right? The best way to ground is in ocean water, right? So it's such environmental stress is such a huge part of the dysfunction of our population. If we just stay consistent to the city of Toronto, so it's so necessary for us to be connected with nature because we come from nature. We are nature. If we were living coherently with or cohesively with nature, things would be much different than in the way we've been living for so long and taking, and we're seeing a deterioration. But it is so fundamentally important that you connect with nature in the physical form daily.
I went on a camping trip last week with my son's grade 8 class as a parent volunteer.
Oh, awesome.
And my son and 3 of the boys were all earthing on the whole trip with me.
Yeah.
Walking around on their bare feet.
It's awesome. It's, you know what, the proof is in the pudding. You have a rough day and you're a little bit emotionally, battling, and you don't have any tools in place to be able to deal with those emotions. Go sit in nature for 10 or 15 minutes. On your way home from work, as opposed to rushing home to sit in front of the TV with a beer and a box of popcorn or watching the sports game. Go stop 15, 20 minutes. I used to, when I was working, in more traditional corporate type way, there was a bench that I would always sit on my way home, to leave all of the day behind me and just allow Mother Earth to assist in taking all that, because it really does assist. It does help.
I think depending on where you come from in your belief structure or whatever it is, if you realize once you get out in nature and nature is very, even in like a small park or whatever in the city, you understand that the earth is very old. And what happened today or yesterday is not a big deal in the history of the world.
It's an interesting thing, and even in that the planet that we live on here, Earth, is old but very young in the in the grand scheme of things on a cosmic level, I mean, Mother Earth would be the equivalent of like a 13 or 14-year-old teenage girl, right? All over the place. She's still learning how to work with her own weather and that on different planets. And I know this starts getting out there, but
you can get out there sometimes, buddy.
Yeah, these on different planets where there's intelligent life that are much more evolved or much older, you don't have things like hurricanes and tornadoes and that. It's just a very peaceful, calm existence always. We also don't have all of these different things that we deal with.
Can I ask you something just off topic? I know we're supposed to be developing.
Yeah, well, we're working with you. Yeah, so we don't, and we want to bring a lot of power and presence to this, so we're not here for 3, 4, 5 hours.
Yeah, I know we can get down some rabbit holes. I want to ask something. Do you believe in parallel realities or parallel universes? You know this theory that every decision you make, that decision actually exists in another.
Yeah. It's. I try not to have too much of a belief on anything. Okay. Right. When you ask a belief or opinions, I think those belief patterns are connected to memories and relationships or identifying with things. Where if we don't identify with things outside of ourselves, then those belief patterns, it's a completely different thing. We're always open. But from my awareness and what I've experienced in meditations and things like that is that there is intelligent life, a multitude of it, far beyond our wildest dreams, what we can imagine. You start getting into parallel universes. Is there 100,000 different Michael Colligans on a parallel form? I mean, we could go on forever with that hypothesis. I think the one big thing that we need to be aware of, and there was a guy by the name, I think his name was Ken Wilber, and this is back in the mid-1900s. You had to go to the East for the spiritual type stuff. Here in the West is more kind of theoretical type religious.
Scientific.
And all that kind of stuff. And what his findings and what he spoke to and really resonated with me is that you cannot fully comprehend or grasp the higher from the lower, but you can completely grasp the lower from the higher. Mm-hmm. So I use the analogy of being in grade school. You're in third grade. You can have an idea on what is going on in the fourth grade, but you don't really understand it or really know. When you're in the fourth grade, you could fully well articulate what the third grade was like, what that whole experience was. So us trying to gauge what's going on a parallel level.
I got another example of that.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So my dog was sitting by the field had just been plowed.
Yeah.
And all the soybeans were taken out of it. And my dog was sitting further down, closer to the field. And you know how it goes down the hill there towards towards the road. And there's 20 acres of land there. And she's sitting there lying on the field, and she's looking around the field. And I watched her just lie there and put her nose in the air and smell and this and that. And you think, this dog's there is processing this information. So you can, from a human perspective, you can see what a dog is doing.
Yep.
And imagine it. And maybe you don't know everything about what the dog's thinking or whatever.
Exactly.
But you can understand that the dog, what they're up to and all that. But a dog can't understand a human.
Yeah, I completely. It's another really great analogy. It's so what we're getting at here is that we are so focused, especially in this part of the world where a lot of these different theories and things are coming out, right? If you look at more of the real, authentic practitioners and facilitators from different parts of the world, there's very little talk about these types of things, about angels and parallel universes. It's about working some sort of practice, which is what we're getting entrenched in, so that you can be the best human you can possibly be.
Yeah.
So
in this universe,
on this planet, in this body, right, is the reason why we came here. Even if you look at string theory, quantum mechanics, all these different quantum physics, they only explain about 90% of what's going on in higher densities. And that's first and foremost if your belief patterns allow you to see that there are different dimensional levels. If your belief patterns have you centered and situated in the fact that this is the only life and this is the only planet where life exists, which is completely okay, then the conversation is a moot point. Start discussing things about parallel universes and different things. But in the context of where we're inquiring through these things, we can't completely know how things function there because we're looking at it from an observatory vantage point, which is below it. It would be like trying to look up at a tree and know what's on the top of the very top leaf of that tree. You can have an idea.
Sure.
Maybe there's a fly or a bee.
Intimation of it.
Exactly. And that's what we have here on this level. Now, everybody that comes out with a theory believes that their theory is the answer to everything. Right. So, and their belief patterns and the validation that comes with it. So you have a lot of individuals out there that are doing a lot of good work, but are posing different ways of looking at things, which is their truth. The closer and closer that individual gets to some form of well-being practice and walking in the light of God, they start to see things more as the truth, which essentially would mean that if you look at two trees and you have an oak tree and a birch tree, the mind wouldn't go, oh, well, that one's an oak tree, that one's a birch tree, that one's smaller, that one's prettier, whatever it may be. A tree is just a tree, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we see things as our truth, and then we share our truth with the world, and based on your values and that, and does it align with you? You know, you pick up a book and you start reading, and if it doesn't align with who you are, you put it back down. So I think that's kind of
so. How do we reach for the truth?
For the truth is an inner exploration. We have to stop, in the words of one of the great masters of the systems that I work in, he says we have to stop assimilating through the eyes, so out here looking to process in that way, and go in within the atoms, or go into the atoms. So really the only way to see the truth of what is actually happening in our reality is to work something authentically and vigilantly. And that takes a significant consistency, day in and day out, of you exploring the inner world of who you are, which is essentially what I've committed my life to. Is not teaching, it's not coaching. I see myself more as a researcher of human behavior. So when we're spending time together, I'm looking at its accumulation of more and more information, which then I can then use and apply in different scenarios with different people or groups, or within our relationship, what allows me to gain more wisdom about how the human experience unfolds and functions. And that's kind of the whole thing, is continuously auditing and observing how things are unfolding in our own life, making the small corrections that happen in a very fluid way, as opposed to these big drastic changes. Although we are looking for drastic transformation very quickly, we want the pendulum to shift in a very balanced way, so that it's a sustainable reality that you are creating. It's a pipe dream to think that you're going to go from, working a 40-hour work week with the belief pattern, that's how you create, and I'm not saying that's necessarily what you do, but that's how you create abundance in your life, to a 4-hour work week. It's just there has to be a shift there, right? Just like you getting into better physical condition. If you were able to snap your fingers and be where you wanted to be when we first met, you wouldn't know what went into actually creating that reality in your life, and you wouldn't be able to sustain it.
Yeah, I think people overestimate the power of incremental improvement.
Big time.
So, for example, like a lot of people don't. First of all, a lot of people don't know their net worth, for example.
Yep.
And let's say your goal, like not everyone's goal is to increase their net worth, but a lot of people's goal would be to, if they knew what their net worth was, to increase it. If you increase your net worth by 0.5% a month, or 1% a month, that's 12%. It's not 12% a year, because it compounds on itself.
Exactly. Of course.
Right?
Of course.
And so it's probably more like 18%. I'd have to calculate it.
Yeah, you would have to. Yep.
Yeah, but people don't realize that by changing your focus and zeroing in on powerful behaviors has exponential returns, equivalent to compound interest.
I completely agree. And unfortunately, we've been raised in an environment and in a world where, you look at the public school. I think we discussed this earlier. The public school system was created because they needed more factory workers. So our education system is lackluster at best, and I don't mean that in any way of judgment or
it's not criticism.
No, but it is.
It's observation.
Yeah, exactly. It's observation, right? So. It's an interesting thing. I had this conversation just recently with a gentleman who's quite wealthy, invests a lot of money in the real estate and in the market, but in his business there's holes that need to be filled. And I posed a question to him. I said, "You look at the hiring of a certain specific employee in your company as a cost, correct?" And his answer was yes. I said, "And you look at the money that you put into the market in that new stock or Bitcoin, whatever it is, as an investment, correct?" He said, "Yes, correct." I said, "And therein lies the massive issue in why things aren't performing as massively as they can in your business. They're just doing good." Now, by his standards, 20 to 30 million a year is pretty good, right? But you fill those voids and those holes. I argue that is an investment, and the return on a person in your company that you're training and paying properly, that return on that investment can be monumentally on a much higher level than that investment, and without the risk too, right?
The problem, the people issue, I think the human resource management issue.
Yep.
Okay, so I believe that in entrepreneurship, and I'm in this spot right now, and most of the people that are my peers are in the same position, where the number one issue is how to manage the people correctly. And
it's not about, giving people their dream jobs. It's not about paying money. People, I always say that my number one priority is I want people that want to earn more money and get more vacation time.
Yeah.
I don't want people that want their dream jobs. You understand what I mean? Because then it puts the pressure on me to create something that's awesome for them, an experience that's awesome. So I think there's a balance there between, how to engage, how to train people the correct way and teach them the processes and the things they need to do. Like, it was interesting because I own a spa.
Yep.
Okay, in Southern Ontario, in Southwestern Ontario.
Yep.
And
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, I hired a manager for it, and I was thinking, like, I don't know, man. Maybe this girl should work with Luke Sellars for a bit. That's what I was kind of thinking.
Well, it's the interesting thing about, and it's interesting you bring that topic up, because I know a large part of your interests in your own goals are conflict resolution or
Right.
what that looks like. And, I read extensively into kind of your thoughts and perspectives on that, which I agree with completely. I'm not a fan of conflict resolution. I think it's a joke.
Yes.
It's a complete waste of time. I think the issue is that within most companies, how many employees you have?
I have 25 of them.
You have 25 employees. How many departments?
Whew. Okay, so there's the studio.
Okay.
Yeah, there's lighting solutions.
Yep.
There's the Atlas order desk and
Yep.
waste diversion and Blue Harbor Beauty Bar.
Perfect. So you have different divisions, or different, where you have different teams working within each of those divisions.
Yep.
Now, I guess the question first I would ask is, and what we're looking at is essentially elite team performance.
Sure.
You want a team performing as optimally as possible. The best analogy for this type of thing, or the best environment to be able to gauge metrics, is in professional sports, because in professional sports, there's nowhere to hide.
Sure.
You perform or you don't. It's one or the other, right?
Everything's what you did.
In business, you can hide, right? Specifically in Canada, where business seems to flow in a lot softer way, if it's the right
Yeah, Americans are more fierce.
Yeah, a little bit more cutthroat in that, right? So first and foremost, my question is always this. Let's back it up a bit. Is there a reference point for all conversations to be led back to about performance? And that often comes down to, okay, so a company will establish, let's say, their trademark or mission statement, and that will be established by the president, the CEO, maybe a board of directors, and usually some sort of consultant that is skilled or versed in this area. The thing about it is the people within the company don't necessarily align with what those things are. So there might be a debriefing of this and a booklet handed out every year. What would it look like if you actually brought together, and in a company of 25, it might be your entire team brought together all at once, sat them all down, and if you have a trademark, do you have sort of a mission type thing?
Yeah, I mean, lighting solutions is see the savings, see the light.
Okay.
And I think that's established in that realm.
Yep.
I think Atlas is undergoing a transformation, because that right now that type of business is sort of fading away.
Gotcha.
And it needs to be transformed into more of an experience online as well as physically and on the phone.
Gotcha.
And so that's where you want to explore that mission statement, that trademark.
Yep.
Waste diversion is manage it right
Yep.
at the end of life.
Okay.
Right. So take care of your waste correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And Blue Harbor Beauty Bar is it's a work in progress, buddy.
So which is great, is great, right? Because from what I've learned from being around a lot,
but there's nothing overarching the whole thing.
Exactly, right? So I mean, the first question would be, do you want to have a common kind of apex to the umbrella of everything that you're doing, right? I don't know. This is something that we'll dive into over the next 12 weeks. I mean, in the early stages, these first 2 to 3 weeks is heavily focused on you and getting you set with some certain behaviors. But basically, what it would look like, let's take one of these companies where you have a tagline there and a general idea on what it is that you stand for, bringing together the working parts within that environment and sitting them down in a workshop type setting and working with the actual employees and getting their feedback on, okay, repeat one of your things.
Lighting solutions, see the savings, see the light.
See the savings, see the light. Okay, what does see the savings, see the light mean to you as a group? What does it mean to you as a group to your customers? What does it mean to you as a group to your teammates? What does it mean to you individually? What are the behaviors that align with this mantra that is this business? And then we work with them to start, and literally it's like on a whiteboard. What are the best behavior? Hardworking, compassionate, does it, whatever those are. And we continually break things down with them as a group. What comes out in the totality of this type of experience is that in its entirety, you have a point of reference that all team members have agreed upon. And when we run these types of workshops, sometimes like when we develop a trademark for a company, for instance, Mayfair, we'll use that as an analogy. When we went in there, we brought the whole training team together, personal training team. And in the first 12 months, I think we grew that department in Markham about 60% net based on these principles. Brought them together and said, how do you want to be viewed by your customers, by your teammates, and when no one's watching? We eventually, everyone's throwing out words in that, right? They're all up on a whiteboard. We condense them down. We eventually arrive at, we want to inspire, unite, and transform.
Still on the board there.
IUT, yeah, right? What does inspire look like to a customer, a teammate, and when no one's watching? Well, we break it down. It's inspiration. It's being, communication.
Sure.
Okay, so what does communication look like to a customer? And they're doing the work in this workshop setting. What does it look like to a teammate? Look, it means uplifting a teammate when you see them doing something that speaks to inspire, uniting, and transforming. So now we have all these behaviors that are in alignment with inspire, unite, transform, which everybody has agreed upon that this is who we are. So now you put things into place. One of the biggest issues in the workplace is that the common form of dialogue is 6 negatives to 1 positive, which is in alignment with the way that the human mind functions in a subconscious level, which is 70 roughly 1,000 thoughts a day, 95 to 98% the same as yesterday, and 70% are negative. This is the way that we've been developed. There's no way around it. Right? You turn the news on, you see fears being instilled in us in the education system. It's being instilled in us everywhere. It's being in the medical, everywhere, right? So we want to switch that to 6 positives to 1 negative. Because what that now starts to create is trust within the workplace and trust within teammates.
But that goes both ways.
Of course. Oh, of course. 100%.
And it has to do with listening skills?
Yes.
People have to learn to listen to one another.
For sure.
They have to learn to observe one another's behaviors.
100%. 100%. And you can get into some profiling and things like that too, where you better understand the way a person functions. But just the simple formulation of developing a point of reference. Okay, we stand for inspiring, uniting, and transforming. Great. We're going to all commit to acknowledging one another when we're in the process of anything that speaks to that. So in the health club, what it was is that if you saw one of your teammates that was doing something that was a behavior connected to our trademark, then you would acknowledge them. So what you find now is you got a 20-year veteran trainer who you got a 2-week rookie on board who's putting weights away. And that 20-year-old trainer's coming up to him saying, hey, brother, I saw what you did there. Great work. They made up a handshake and all that kind of stuff. It builds trust.
Sure.
Now when that veteran sees, or vice versa, right, this completely also dissolves of the pyramid top-down approach to the way things function. Doesn't mean you don't have managers and directors, but they open themselves up to feedback also. Sure. It all comes back to constant feedback. And ideally what you want to have happen is where your team self-regulates. So if I see you not doing your job, pulling your weight, and I've been focusing on uplifting you and all this team culture functioning, and I walk over and say, Mikey, does this really speak to inspiring, uniting, and transforming our customers or our teammates? You know what, Luke, you're right. Thanks for holding me accountable. And that's the kind of dialogue that starts to take place. So when we look at conflict, they're called critical conversations. There's a book written on this, right, which would be good for you to read at some point. But basically, what would happen if we look at the foundation, like we did when we went through herbs and that, not the symptom,
sure,
right? The foundation, the culture, and what's being done to drive that on a regular basis. Because any job position, even if it's your dream job.
So, but let's say you're saying that this sitting down, creating a simple tag line or trademark to the activities that are going on, which has depth to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that in a way it's simple. You unite, inspire, transform, or unite, UIT or whatever, and that but has depth to it. So those words actually mean something
to everyone in that team,
and individually and as a group.
Exactly, and
right?
that's where.
So you're saying that's how you avoid making the conversation personal about the other person. Instead, it's about what we're trying to do.
Exactly. So, and in the construction of that. By the end of those mini workshops, which are a day or 2 days long, I mean, you work in some heart coherent stuff with it and different exercises you do with the team. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. The biggest thing is that you have a point of reference to have all conversations about performance. So now on a monthly basis, and then there's actionable items that are suggested to the business owner or the president or if it's the director of each team, which is feedback sessions on a monthly basis, along with a wide variety depending on what the team needs. But envision a reality where you're the employee and I'm the boss, right? And I hand you a sheet of paper, and on that piece of paper at the top it says, what are the 3 words that you would use to describe yourself? What are the 3 words that you think your team would use to describe you? And what are the things that you think that you should keep doing, start doing, and stop doing? And you're doing a self-evaluation, and I take that sheet and I look at it, okay, all right, yeah, where do you need support in these areas, Michael? Right? And now it's a collective relationship, because let's be honest, you have an entrepreneurial
my environment is ridiculously entrepreneurial.
Yes.
Like too much in some ways.
Yes.
Okay. So I got so much going on. Like there's no shortage of ideas here. I got 5 more ideas in the pipeline.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware.
It's like there's no shortage of that here. Yeah. Like I could make them wherever I would focus my time, it will make money. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. But the thing with me is like there's like it would not be useful to bring, I don't think, to bring all the people from all the different entities together. No, I don't think there's any synergy there at all.
You would do them separately. I mean, you're like a lot of pure entrepreneurs, highly creative, right? And that's where you're in your flow. From what I've observed so far, that's when you're in your flow, and that's when life's exciting for you.
Sure.
You break it down to the day-to-day management of the little details and stuff, you want to blow your brains out. I mean, I'm the same way, and most successful entrepreneurs function the same way and see value in paying the experts to come in and do those things that you don't want to do. You would do it separately. But essentially you want all of your teams to be functioning the same way as if you're there when you're not there. And that's essentially what a high-performing team is. The team doesn't only perform high because the boss is there. The team performs high because they have a seed of inspiration that has been planted within them, and they're showing up for themselves and for their teammates.
So here's the mistake I make, okay? Maybe I don't know I don't know if this is going to sound come out the right way.
I'm sure it will.
Okay, hopefully. Let me try to unpack it a little bit. I don't know how I want to put this this is going on the internet, so it's going to be out there. Okay, so one of the, how everything that's maybe a talent is also like a negative in disguise. It's like a yin and yang. So every coin has 2 sides.
Yeah, our greatest attributes will be the things that we also suffer through most.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have high creativity, and you're maybe a higher than average IQ person. I'm not saying that that's what I am, but maybe let's say that.
No, you are. You are. It's not. Oftentimes, you got to be confident to be able to say.
I'm confident about it.
To say what you are.
Right. So
right. It's not ego. It's just saying what you are.
So I'm a high IQ person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not saying whatever.
No.
Bill Gates level. But
no, but it's an accurate analogy
with a big dose of creativity.
Yeah.
Okay. And creativity and high IQ are 2 different things.
Yeah.
Okay. So those 2 things I have been blessed with. Okay. So the problem I have is I have trouble communicating with people because I have assumptions about what I know.
Yeah.
That other people have no clue what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
And it's a huge problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's actually, it's very, very difficult to communicate with people when they don't have the experiences I have, they don't have the understandings I have, and when I'm saying words,
and
what
vice versa,
words mean,
and vice versa, right?
It's very difficult for them to communicate with me. So they may be hearing one thing,
yep,
and then interpreting it, and it's like it's my responsibility to make sure that they understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's it's amazing. It's a beautiful analogy with respect to this, and which is in alignment with also with your faith in that and what you've been is to my understanding one of Christ's most amazing features was that he was able to deliver information to people in a way that they received it.
Unbelievable.
As opposed to the way that he thought that it needed to be spoken.
And not only that, though, but he was the greatest. Like whether you believe,
it
doesn't matter.
Forget about about the
if you
biblical
read the
stuff.
Gospels, the wisdom in the parables
it's
the depth of those stories is mind-boggling.
It's mind-blowing, and that's we get caught up so
and they're
much.
so simple.
We get caught up so much in looking at the doctrines of religion and whether it's right or wrong or accurate, and sometimes just forget to.
There's nothing more pathetic too than two PhD theologists arguing about it. When you listen to it, it's like, what are you guys talking about?
It's ridiculous. Like it's when you take a step back and just see the beauty of the information, the wisdom. So communication, as you know, is just as much about listening as it is about speaking. And I really believe that I think that the development of this podcast for you has probably done wonders for your ability to communicate, because it puts you in a position where you're usually the one doing a lot of the talking because you're an intelligent, creative
it's the
guy.
other way around.
Yeah, for this it is. That's what I mean.
The podcast.
Yes, what I'm saying, which is really good, because that helps develop your abilities in communication.
That was the transformational change.
Yeah, exactly, right? So
Yes.
Working with understanding the inner workings of yourself allows you to better understand others. Your spirit's in your heart when you're having those communications and those things. You're able to intuitively, and your intuition will start to increase. You're able to now speak in a way where it's not so much about you trying to get your point across, but speaking in a way that they're going to receive what that point looks like.
Yeah, the right word is receive.
Exactly.
Like the information is there, but are they receiving the information?
Exactly. And oftentimes, what you're looking to trying to do, because of the high intelligence and creativity, is you're looking to
simplify.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, and that stuff there is all stuff that will come as a byproduct of what we're working on. We can't focus on symptoms. We have to focus on the foundation first and foremost.
So the symptom is the conflict.
Yeah, the symptom is the conflict, or the symptom is not being able to, or really, if you break it down further, the symptom is people not receiving you in the way that you want them to, which can then create some form of conflict. And like I said, I agree with you, this whole conflict resolution stuff, and that's where it just doesn't work, where when you come back around and you look, okay, wait a minute, let's back up a minute here, and let's look at what is the fundamental foundation that is driving the performance of my team. Forget about selling lights, forget about any of that stuff. Because even if somebody's working their dream job, that dream job, there'll be parts of that become mundane.
Even playing in the AHL can be a grind.
It is. It's like if you get into the daily grind of going to work. We'll go back to the fitness department of that club because we both know it. You can love working with people to achieve their goals in fitness, but there's still going to be days where that is a mundane job that you're just like, now, when you have a team that's driving its performance from within itself, from within its culture, now all those mundane details are exciting because you're there. Essentially, your workplace environment becomes more of a family, but a family of mutual respect and integrity that is upholding and uplifting one another to a very high level of performance. And those that don't choose to be part of it, they go out the door. The beautiful thing with it, when you set the tone, is a lot of the people that aren't in alignment with that type of culture, with what your vision is as a business owner, will remove themselves. Right? So we can talk more about this.
Let's get into it.
Let's get back into. So the we have a small catch-up introduction, and it's 45 minutes later. Yeah. This tends to be an ongoing thing with us. So it's, but nonetheless, so the format of how we gather, right, over the next 3 months, we're having these intensives at the start of every month, which we'll dive into quite a bit of stuff. But then on a weekly basis, we're gathering in this way, and we have these coaching worksheets, because about 60% of the velocity, 50 to 60% of the velocity behind this relationship will come when we're spending time together. The other 40 to 50% comes in your ability to do work and show up, what your capacity is to do actionable items that are suggested to you, that are in alignment with who you're being or not being, in what I'm observing when we're spending time together. Okay. I'm not interested in what you do. I'm interested in your beingness, who you're being, right? It's, what you do and the identities that you've developed and all these different things. Those are things that you've created to participate in being human. But you came to this planet to really understand what being human is, and that is your own inner work, your inner guidance, whatever that looks like. So when we come together, I sent you a set of actionable items last week. Oftentimes, I don't have them up there. Do you want me to put them up there?
No, sure. Yeah, go, whatever you want. It's up to you.
I can put them up there.
Okay.
We'll just look at, you know what? I'm not going to, because then I can't read them as well. So this here doesn't need to be seen. This is basically the way that we look at it. So we come together, and I'm going to ask you, where's your well-being at? we had discussed developing a well-being checklist where you're committing to well-being practices daily and documenting them in the evening, which allows us at the end of every week on a subconscious level to start to see that who we are being in our life, because these actionable items are being based, right? Centering you in your being, in your heart, or however you'd like to call it. And then the documentation of it is showing us subconsciously that who we're being creates our relationship to our reality, not what we do. Most of us have it backwards. If we just go do more things, and this is the way of business, the way we've developed our businesses, do more, that allows us to have whatever it is that we think that we need to have so that we can be happy. It's backwards. First, we need to be that frequency, that vibration, that which we say we want in our lives, which will cause us to do the necessary things, which then we have the experience of wholeness, of bliss, of joy in our life. And it's a very powerful place to create from. So the well-being exercises and the documentation of it, when we come together weekly, I'll ask you, where's your well-being percentage at? Do you know where it's at?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you have an idea?
Well, that would be the 4 things on your screen there.
No. That's something that I'm going to touch on briefly. We're going to get into in a minute. But if we look at,
I missed some homework. It looks like
that's okay. No, yeah, it's not. But it's not homework first and foremost, right? Because we don't want to get into that mindset that it's just being done to be done, right?
No. But what it is like, for me, what I established into my routine is the herbs, the earthing, the food.
Perfect.
Okay, and the meditation, the daily meditation.
Okay,
and actually twice a day.
Wow.
So that's what I established.
Amazing.
Yes.
And you're hitting those daily?
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes.
That's
established.
You've come out of the blocks, way ahead of most. In the first couple of weeks or the first month of the relationship that I have with people in this context, it's a bit of a learning experience because I bring a certain energy to it that doesn't really screw around too much, and there's a certain power to that, right? So the fact that you've been able to incorporate and implement actionable behaviors into your life and do them daily, I commend you on it big time, because it usually doesn't function that way. I meditated 3 or 4 times and, I did this. And, for you, you're very meticulous with the... Actually,
the thing with me is that the earthing and the meditation are my favorite parts of it, actually.
Beautiful. So if you were actually, if we look at the action items that were suggested to you for the last 10 days, the first one was to take a look at all 7 areas of your life and give yourself a score out of 10 for each area in how you feel you're showing up, performing in that area of your life. For areas that are out of balance, create an actionable item to integrate into your life to bring that area up. Call me to discuss if need be. Right? So, did you do that?
No, I did not.
Okay.
But I will do it for our next session.
Yeah, perfect. And it's not something that you need to send to me. It's just an audit. Well, actually, you did do it because so I stand corrected. In the performance consulting application, you did it. Right?
Okay,
and the biggest area there is social.
Right.
Okay. We're not going to get into these areas right now. In the early stages, I want you to just do an audit to have an idea and an awareness.
Yeah, I did do it in the
Yeah, you did, right? So, and the second one, we look at develop and track daily a well-being checklist. There's a template attached composed of actionable items that connect you into your being. Come to the next coaching session with an accurate well-being percentage. Here are a few we discussed. Go for a morning walk, connect physically with nature. That's the grounding. Meditate daily. Read 30 minutes a day. You can definitely add more onto that. The herbs and the diet. So, in fact, in the last 10 days, your well-being's probably been up around 100%.
It's so. What I think what the message for me was that when you actually consider what you're doing every day.
Yep.
And the idea of showing up for yourself. So it's like, okay, I like meditation helps me.
Yeah.
Okay, so do it every day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Commit to doing it every day. Working out is good for you. So commit to doing it 3-4 times a week.
Which you have that ability. Most don't, right? Because the conscious awareness of our brains, 5% that's about conscious, will say, yes, this is something I need to do. Then tomorrow will come. You exercise 2-3 days in a row, and then the 4th day comes and you didn't sleep as well. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit cold out. Your bed's warm in the morning.
Sure.
And the subconscious mind comes in and gives you every reason why you don't need to go work out right now. We call it the 5-second rule. When you've defined or identified a new, let's say, action in your life, like say exercise or meditation, and now tomorrow comes and it's time to do that thing, and that thought comes, you got about 5 seconds to act on it before the subconscious comes in and starts to bargain and justify every reason why you don't have to do that. because that's wherein lies and is housed the human ego. And the ego doesn't want anything to change. It likes being in control, thinking it's the most important thing in the room and all that kind of thing, right? So you're basically up around 100%, which is quite interesting and very, very, very good. Now, what you can possibly do with this well-being checklist is look at adding maybe something into it. With the way that this checklist works in its entirety,
Sure.
10 things would be on there.
Okay.
Now, this is for somebody who hasn't been doing
It's
any.
a daily thing.
Yeah, daily, right? So you keep the well-being checklist bedside. Okay, you keep it beside your bed. The whole idea here is that we want to be accessing the different parts and hemispheres of the brain. So the left hemisphere of the brain is masculine, the right is feminine. So the masculine hemisphere of the brain is analytical, logical, the documentation of things, lawyers, accountants, all that kind of, like the details.
Sure.
The right hemisphere of the brain is feminine. That's the creative, nurturing, loving part of ourselves, which is essentially what you're activating when you get into these being-based activities like meditation, nature, and those things.
Sure.
At the end of every day, you check off the ones you accomplished. That's now activating that analytical, logical part of the brain.
Okay.
As we start to see that our well-being percentage is growing, right, because we're showing up for those things, and we start looking around at our life, and it's like, nothing's really changed much in my life, but my relationship to it is completely different.
That has happened for sure.
100%, right?
Actually, since I started doing the homework
Yeah.
when I was on vacation till now,
Yeah.
when I read the book and did the 3 things and all that sort of stuff, and then after we met, and then incorporating those 3 things, the diet and the meditation, everything, and that sort of stuff, all into it. There's definitely I've noticed one of the big things I've noticed is clearer thoughts about what the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do is,
which is huge, especially for somebody like you in business, right? And not only that, a really big part of this, and so few people understand this, is that 90% of serotonin is created in our digestive tract. So if your digestive tract is jammed up, specifically your large bowel and all these different things, and the bacteria content in there isn't functioning properly, you're not receiving serotonin in the brain in the way that's most optimal, which means you're not just naturally able to feel good. So what do we seek? Things that create or that spike dopamine. Social media, alcohol, sex, whatever it may be, right? Sure. So it's natural that as we come at it with the nutrition aspect, removing the poisons and putting things in to drive the performance of the primary parts of your physical body, the large bowel and the thyroid, and then come at it energetically with the meditative stuff and that, what you start to now experience is an overall more balanced approach and experience of life, and within that balance is an access to intelligence and information that comes very easily, comes from places where it's like, where did that come from?
I'll tell you. So I was meditating about a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
A couple days after we met, and I was sitting outside, and it was early in the morning, and I was out there. The dog was running around, and then I quietly sat down, a little patch of grass, and something occurred to me, and I said to myself, "We're all children," and that's. And I was thinking to myself, and it's not like people need to be, like, in an insulting way, treated like children.
Yep.
But if we see each other in a way as delicate, sensitive creatures that don't understand everything and need to be guided, including myself, right? Not I'm the parent and everyone's a child.
I agree completely.
And then what happened was, so for example, I got in, there was a bit of an argument I had with somebody, and they said something to me that in the past I would have interpreted it as mean and needing it of an apology or whatever.
Of course.
And I said, instead, I inside myself, I just laughed at it. And I said, like, that was, it was like, I don't know how to put it. In some ways it was a relief, and in other ways I laughed because I was thinking to myself that, that's, you're reaching for some way to hurt me, but you can't. Yeah.
And your awareness in the moment of that, I mean, essentially, this is what this whole observation of life, or becoming the watcher or the observer of life, being in the eye of the hurricane, is that you're unaffected and untouched by what's going on outside of you. So that person can say to you whatever they would like. When you're identifying with personhood, those things affect you. Right? Because you identify with...
my ego's pissed off.
Exactly, right? And,
don't say that
and
to
that
me,
can throw you into a...
You can't speak to me like that.
That can throw you into a spiral. The Heart Math Institute has scientifically shown that when you get into an argument with a loved one or with a coworker, whatever it may be, and cortisol's spiked and all these things, and you feel like you've been slighted, that it knocks off the harmony and the waveform of the brain and the heart, and it can stay that way for days. You know, and then we go out and we call our wife. You're not going to believe what this person said. And we go to this buddy. You're not going to believe.
And that's outrageous.
And you amplify. And this amplification of your thoughts and emotions, when they come out of you, they come out like, they're called elementals by this master from Cyprus, Daskalos, and he's got these researchers of truth. So they call thoughts elementals. And I agree with them. The thought comes out in this area of the head like a snake almost, right? And when it's a negative thought, it literally looks like a snake. Now, the thing is that goes out.
It's threatening like a snake.
That goes out and collects with all kinds of other thoughts that are similar to yours.
Yes.
Now, the thing is, it comes back to you. When it comes back to you, it doesn't come back like that little snake that came out. It comes back like an anaconda hitting you in the back of the head. Sure. You know, now we live in a life where
it builds its own momentum.
No kidding. The beautiful thing is that the thoughts that are pure and loving and compassionate, they come out and they look like these beautiful sparkling, stars, so to say, and now that's going to come back to you in the same way. This is the interesting thing. You could be standing in a mob of people, that are seeking redemption or whatever of an individual with all of these horrible thoughts and creating all of these elementals that creates this mob-like mentality. You put an ascended master like Christ in the middle of that, he's not going to be attracting that stuff off, because what is he giving off? He's giving off the voices of angels and love and compassion, and that's what's going to be coming back. So you can be in the most convoluted environment, the most discombobulated environment of hatred and fear and all that, and still be centered in the eye of the hurricane, only attracting love and compassion and beautiful experiences into your life. And I think this is wherein lies the strength and the power for an entrepreneur or a businessman. Most people, men specifically, in those positions see forgiveness, compassion, love as a weakness, right? And most manage through fear. What would it look like if the governing force that was driving all performance was love, right? A lot of things now start to shift and change. So if we look at your performance in the context of this specific tool, you're performing very, very, very well. I would urge you to explore tracking it on a daily basis. But you're looking right now, your well-being checklist is comprised of earthing, so nature, meditation, herb consumption, proper nutrition, and the fifth one there the one that I added in, I think you already read on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, reading is not an issue for me.
Yeah, right. So
and sleeping's not an issue.
And you don't want to put things on your well-being checklist that are not an issue. So
right.
the whole idea is that this checklist helps you drive your well-being performance. So meditation, let's say you meditated every day for 90 days. Roughly about 62 days it takes to imprint a new pathway in the brain. 21 days to lay the foundation of it. So typically I say around 90 days, when something's been on your well-being checklist, you've hit it every day for 90 days, you move it off. And you bring on a new actionable item that is pushing your boundaries.
Yeah, it's like I don't need exercise on my well-being checklist.
Exactly.
I already do it every day.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
Exactly, right? The third actionable item is, what is your purpose or destiny? To explore and contemplate what this looks like. So very, very simple action.
I've explored that a lot, actually.
Yeah, and that'll be a continued exploration through your contemplations, through your meditations, right? So there's three very simple actions.
So let me ask you this. Would you say, so that I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Like with the releasing of the Get a Grip on Life podcast and all this stuff in front of me, and sort of the nervousness and there's some anxiety there about whether it's a good idea or not.
Yep.
Okay. And so I
But I ask you the question, who is anxious?
I know, that's the thing, right? It's like I'll tell you this. It's like it's like. I don't know if it was you that said it to me, and it's like we were talking about conflict. I think it was you on the one of when we met. It's like, well, stop being the source of conflict.
Yeah, because you are the source of all of it.
Yes,
exactly. So what we're going to work through is the practices which incorporated give you the symptom or the byproduct of not being the source of conflict.
Yeah, it's like, okay, then now what happened was I literally took when I'm meditating, I take conflict out and I put it over here and I look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then all of a sudden it looks, what are you doing that for?
Well, exactly. And what emotions is that conflict stimulating in you? Right,
yeah, the wrong kind of emotion.
Right, and it's I think
resentment, anger,
exactly,
hatred, and jealousy, envy, rage.
And the beautiful thing about a meditative practice is that it's ignorant and naive for us to think that we're just going to change the way our brains function instantly. Yes. So you're still going to find yourself in conflict at work. Now maybe it took you a day later to be like, man, maybe I didn't come at that the right way. Where now, maybe it'll be 10 minutes later you start. Then eventually, right in the moment, as you start to, like you did in what you were discussing, you self-regulate, you switch the energy.
Yes.
So you're always staying in a state of harmony and bliss, which makes you very powerful.
Well, what it is you can almost see those snakes starting to come out of other people.
Exactly. And you,
in a way. You're like, okay, I know where I am now.
And when you stay centered, when you get out into the
it's like those snakes come out of two people and they roll into each
exactly,
other and they combine, and it's like a big snake fest.
Exactly. So
it sounds so fruity, but it's totally true.
It's totally true, right? So when you get out into the peripheral of the hurricane, which was where most people are existing in life, that's where victims live.
Yes.
So they look at how things got to be the way that they are, which is, again, going back to that conflict resolution, right? Whereas empowered, responsible people look to what is the solution. So and companies that function in that way are always focusing on the solution with a foundation to drive the performance of the culture. So when we look at these different things, it's so fundamentally important to be forgiving, compassionate, and loving, but still holding people accountable. And you can do that. And when you perform from that way, things function very, very well. So if we look at this screen here, I know we've got actually this up in the right-hand corner is back in 2002, Danny Snyder was in that organization, the Atlanta Thrashers, was killed in a car accident with Danny Heatley there. So this is my one of my whiteboards in my office. And the reason I wanted
you knew Dan Snyder?
Yeah, we're real well. Was a real close friend of mine. Yeah, I was part of the organization when it happened. I'll never forget getting the phone call from our trainer that he was passed. He was actually meant to live, but when he was in the hospital there, he was thrown from the car, the Ferrari, but he got a nasal infection. Nonetheless, I keep him around for inspiration in that. So we were good buddies. So this diagram here explains exactly what it is that we're looking to accomplish over the next 3 months, and it's exactly the way in which high-performing people create things in their life. And we'll go deeper and deeper into a lot of these different topics as we move forward. But right now, if we look, who are you and where are you? Okay, this whole understanding and concept, we can psychologically have an idea on who we are, but I'm referring to really knowing on a deep fundamental cellular level who you are. And we're going to get into this when we get into the second month, the intensive there, when we get into cleaning and healing our traumas from our life. So let's just hypothesize for a minute that all of the things that have happened and occurred to you in your life up until this point are all cleaned. It's like none of them ever happened. Okay? It's an interesting concept, meaning all of your wins, all of your losses, everything in your life, none of it has happened. So you're there with the intelligence of an adult, but you're there in your essence like a child, right? A child doesn't have a memory of what happened. I mean, somewhat, right? But let's just say that you know exactly who you are, okay? This is a big problem for most people.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to give you some specific techniques.
A lot of people are pretending they're someone they're not.
Exactly.
Totally.
I
think we all are to some extent.
Exactly. I'm going to share with you, and really these gatherings are nothing more than an invitation for both of us to come together and explore the inner workings of ourselves, human behavior. So let's say you know who you are. Okay, and we're going to work with a specific Tibetan process, which is done in meditation. That's why the foundation in the first month is just getting you familiar with meditation. And we'll start working with things in a very powerful way that transcends the incremental, kind of improvements and has monumental transformations that happen very quickly. So let's say that we know who you are. Now, what is it that you want in life? This is where people, if we look on the screen here, these numbers aren't even relevant, so don't look at the numbers. But what do we want in life? Then this is where people are missing the mark. Now, for yourself, you're quite specific with this. I use the analogy. If I was to be in downtown Toronto, and I picked up this analogy from a close friend of mine, Jerry Powell, I speak it in the way where, I'm there downtown Toronto, I need a taxi cab. I call the taxi cab company, I say, send me a taxi cab. They ask me where I am, I say Toronto. They could send me 10,000 cabs. None of them are going to find me.
Sure.
If I say I'm on the corner of Bay and Bloor, all of a sudden, a taxi shows up in 10 minutes.
Sure.
It's a perfect analogy where people are not hitting the nail on the head in their life. So the question I would ask you is, how specific are you being in what it is that you want, if that makes sense?
Sure.
Most people say, I want to be happy or I want money. Great.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That
You get
doesn't
more,
mean anything.
first and foremost, wanting something in your life gives you more of the experience of wanting it. You need to take action.
Sure.
You need to get in action with what that looks like. So with this specific, being very super specific with what it is that you want in your life, and I'm going to give you an actionable item to incorporate into your meditative process, right? That will assist you in this. So let's say you're being very, very specific with what it is that you want. Now, the wholeness exercises, the well-being exercises, the spiritual exercises that create a sense of love, truth, beauty, right? That's the symptom. You get that,
yes.
right? You meditate,
Okay.
you feel in harmony. You're not excited. You're balanced and blissful. This is where the majority of our population.
Sometimes I'm not.
Okay, which is when you when you're in the brain.
No. Sometimes I find that. Okay, so when you're talking about knowing yourself, so there's things about yourself that are not as complete as maybe you thought they were.
Of course.
Right? And there's things about yourself that you just have to accept as that which they are.
Of course.
Right? And
Yes.
sort of when I was meditating about something, I realized something about myself that is not going to change, is never going to be complete, and I just have to accept. And it made me very sad.
Okay.
But it wasn't like I wasn't bad about the sad. It was like a grieving process to let it go.
Exactly, which is, and that therein lies the beauty of what your process is bringing you, is that it's not a sadness like you lost something. It's a feeling that comes over you as you're processing through,
as you're getting wisdom from whatever, Mother Earth.
Exactly,
whatever
and those emotions, that emotion of sadness was learned at some point in your life. We're going to get back to the core of where you learned all these different things. It's like it was brought to my attention by a friend recently. He's like, we're all enslaved, and this is an interesting concept. We're all slaves, right? And if you really look at this for a moment, and we'll use this cup as an analogy in the way that he did. So if you look at that cup, so what is this?
It's a cup with a little bit of water in it.
How do you know that it's? Let's say that the water's not there for a minute. Let's just look at it as a cup. Okay,
Sure.
So that's a cup.
Yeah.
How do you know it's a cup?
Because the definition, the word cup is a vessel to hold water, and that's the word we use to describe it.
Okay, but where did you learn that we called this a cup?
It could be a sand digger.
Did you come out of the womb? This is what I'm getting at. Is that the majority of the population, you ask them, what is this? They say it's a cup.
It's a sand digger.
Well, the society and the social paradigm that we exist in, psychologically for most, right?
Sure.
Right, because an existence is to just be here, not to be thinking about what happened yesterday or tomorrow. Make sense? So if we're not looking at things from the confines of what has been told to us, and we have a curiosity and an openness to life, this could be, like you said, you could use it to be digging sand. It could be, you fill it with wax. It could be a candle.
Sure.
You could flip it over. It could be a table, right? It could be somebody's best friend. If they're going through a divorce,
Sure.
fill it with whiskey or something,
there you go.
or whatever, or their best friend if they drink tea.
Yeah, sure.
What we're getting at here is that we have been constructed and confined to a way of looking at life that does not allow us to expand or live in the world of possibility, which is the last 10% of life. It's the same as if this was really brought home to me when I was with the master that I trained with. We were down at Ontario Place, and we're walking, and there's a duck swimming there. And he said, "What do you see there?" And they're so beautiful to watch. You see their little, orange feet kicking, and there's swans. So I see a duck. And he said, that's wherein lies your issue, right? I've been working with him for a decade, right? And he looks at me, he says, I see God. It's a big difference. What would life be like if you looked at this and you didn't see a cup, but you saw God? And essentially, that's what spiritual practice, that's what well-being practice is the labor that allows us to bear the fruits.
What about when you're looking at other people?
That's exactly it.
So you're looking at them and you're seeing...
this is the whole idea. So you start to see in that person...
the image of God.
Exactly. Right? You see
now you're back to Christianity again. You're gonna be a Christian, Luke.
It's in the context and the way that we're using it, right?
Yeah.
It's
that's straight out of the Bible.
I see when I look into the eyes of other human beings, I'm not going to say that I'm at an elevated state where I see God.
Sure.
Right? It's one that I'm working towards because I don't know what God is.
Sure.
I mean, I'm in a consistent daily exploration of trying to walk in that light. I see myself in the eyes, which essentially could be the same thing. Right? But this is the whole thing here, is that if we're looking at the reality as what it is, right? I mean, we would have to be completely void of our belief patterns and our perspectives and that to see it that way. But if we can understand that we see life as our own truth and that everyone around us sees life as their own truth, right? And now we're all coming together, specifically, let's say in the workplace, to use the
to find the truth.
Yeah, right? To find the truth or whatever that looks like. You're going to be dealing with conflict. You're going to be dealing with issues. And that's where you have to get out in front of the curve to continuously be doing things to uplift and build culture that has a self-regulating way in which it performs. So that it's not always Michael Colligan, the owner of the company.
I have to change the way I interact with people.
Exactly. And possibly the fundamentals that are driving the culture of your company.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So if we look at, what you specifically want, now the wholeness exercises over here are the things that allow us to bear the fruits of our labor. They are not the be all and end all. And this is where a lot of people in Western civilization are missing the mark right now. They think, well, I started meditating and I go to yoga class every night, but my life isn't getting any better. Well, of course not, because you don't have a clear idea of who you are. You don't have a clear understanding of where you're going or what you want. And you think that by doing these spiritual practices that
you could be doing things that are the opposite.
You could be that if I had a nickel for every time I heard somebody and I asked them the question, well, where are things going for you? Oh, well, the universe guides me. Okay, God's not going to pay your rent.
Yeah, sure.
God's not going to, and I got obviously the context in which I use God as spirit form and that, and not in the biblical sense. But so these exercises of well-being allow you to bear the fruits of your labor. Now, when you're in action and all of these three things are working synergistically, you know who you are. You have a strong understanding of who you are, which is your strengths, your weaknesses, which allows you to know your truth. You know what you want, and you're committed to the accelerating processes daily. Eventually, the vehicle will show up. The universe will provide you with the vehicle to allow you to experience that which you say that you want in your life, if it's meant to happen. But you have to stay in constant action with it.
Well, I think when people say I think it's confusing initially when people say, well, what do you want in your life? And they say something from their ego. Like, of course. I could say I want to play a center in the NBA. Yeah. Okay, guess what, son? Yeah. It's not going to happen.
Well, we're looking at realistic wants.
Right, no, but if you actually get into the eye of the hurricane, what you want changes completely. Same
thing happens when you move your spirit from your brain into your heart. The heart has no desire. The ego desires. Yes. And to desire something in your life is to fear not having it in your life.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
So you know, desire
and fear are almost
exactly. That doesn't mean that we can't have fun in life and desire, I don't know, our dream car of a Ferrari or something. Yeah. But again, coming back to what you had said, is allowing ourselves to accept life. We can't have an idea on what it looks like. All we can do is have an understanding and an idea on what it is that we want, have a clear understanding of who we are, which only comes through practice, daily practice. It's the path to mastery. This is not something where once a week we go and theoretically listen to somebody talk about love and beauty and joy, or we go to one class a week of this or that. This is what's done when no one else is watching. The Richard Bransons of the world didn't get to where they are because they're not doing the things that they don't want to necessarily be doing when nobody's watching. That's what developed your ability to create these massive, beautiful endeavors, as an entrepreneur, is attention to detail. Attention. If we want to evolve the way in which we relate to life, we need to put our undivided attention internally within ourselves. There's like a flow
state there.
Exactly. And that flow state is what we're looking to access. And that flow state is a state that we can be in always. And when we're in that state always, we show up and
Would it be draining if you're in that flow state, or is
no,
it the opposite?
It's empowering.
Yeah.
You only sleep 4, 5, 6 hours a night, and you're always on, and you're always here. There's never dips in your energy because you're not putting things into your body that cause that to happen. You're focused on your well-being, right, authentically, and you show up and you be you. I'm sure you've started to probably find a little bit as if you can get a meditation in the morning, you come into the workplace, you're balanced, you're blissful. From that state, problem solving, conversations, there is no conflict. There's never. I would argue that there never has to be any conflict.
I would say that what I would say that from meditation, and even like periodically meditating during the day.
Yeah.
Just like if something's not, I need a second here to just chill out for a bit.
Good.
Right. So I'll go and I have a spot where I'll go sit and just shut it down. But I think what happens is, instead of like continuing to do things the same way but maybe slightly different, completely different solutions appear before you.
Exactly, and that's transformation. continuing to do things in the way we've always done them, just
maybe a little different.
Just a little different is the definition.
I'm
of
going to try smiling when I'm mad at someone now.
It's the definition of insanity.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is this foo-foo type customer service training that goes on in a lot of companies. It doesn't work because there's an energy there. Mm-hmm. You and I are sitting here right now, right? You can look into my eyes, I can look into yours, and know that we have a mutual respect and understanding for one another.
Sure.
We might have some varying opinions on and things that differ, but we respect one another. And when we're this close to each other, our hearts are connecting with one another. I think I showed you that heart math video there, right? You know, and that's just it. So we can try to do the things to create a certain, you know, smile more when you're in conflict. Sure. That person feels, whether they're aware of it or not.
Yeah, they know you're faking it.
Exactly, right? So if we look at, the vehicle will present itself. And this is exactly how you've created things in your life, because when you have all things firing on all cylinders, it will present itself. Now, it will test you early and often, the universe, as to whether or not the thing that you're in action on is something you like the idea of, or you're fully committed.
That's really interesting
to creating it.
That's interesting.
Right?
Because
so
I've actually passed two huge tests about understanding of who I am.
Exactly.
In the last, since
and
we
those
first met.
and those tests for most people are when they will turn back.
Well, no, what I'll tell you right now, like if it was me, the guy I was 10 years ago, I would have been devastated and hurt. You know what I mean? And like, you know, who knows?
Yep.
And for me, it was more like it was a situation where I wasn't the source of the conflict. And when you see it separately, you look at it and you see the insecurity, you see the fear, you see that, and it's interesting that you say the universe tests you. That's exactly what happened twice to me.
Well, it's I mean, to even experience in my own life when I played hockey for a living, found myself down and out, working minimum wage on a construction site, and my mom proposed the opinion. She said, well, people tend to come to you for looking for guidance on things. Why don't you look at actually making this into a business, right? So I explored all that and got into doing some coaching with people, realized that I was inadequate. I didn't have the tools that I needed. So I ventured out and acquired a mentor and went through a mentorship in ontological coaching, which is ontology is the relationship to our reality, different areas of life, and then set back out on the world, fully centered in my being. I'm like, I've got this all figured out. It's sure. that ignorance.
Ego came back.
That being said, I had figured out how to attract clients, right? And they were coming from all directions. The first guy I took back on in my new coaching business, 2 weeks, huge transformations were happening. He went to a concert down in Chicago on the Sunday night, got back from the concert and ended up hanging himself. Exactly. And I had spoken to him briefly before it happened, and basically what he said is the last 2 weeks I couldn't imagine my life would ever get this good. And he decided to end his life thinking that it could never get any better than what it was. He had some relationships with his parents that were quite difficult. But what I'm getting at here is this was, and I'm not making I'm not making the death of another human being about myself, but this in my own interpretation of my life was a huge test for me.
Sure.
And at that point in time, there were some other things that happened in my life where I could have gone a different direction in what I was doing vocationally. I was craving money because I made it as a hockey player and I pissed it all away. But so I had a big decision to make in my life there. I almost packed everything in and went. Sure. I'd be an elevator mechanic right now.
Nothing wrong with being an elevator. Those guys do really well, bro.
That's what I was waiting.
Don't kid yourself.
But I'm being honest.
They're the highest paid tradesmen.
I was waiting to get into the elevator union. At that period of time when I was exploring some coaching stuff and when this happened. And then there was an opportunity that came up for me to get involved with an elevator company literally within that 72-hour period of time, and people around me are thinking I'm crazy that I don't go in that direction because I'm making minimum wage on a construction site, doing some personal training, trying to find out what does all this suffering in my life mean. All I knew is I didn't want other people to have to suffer in that way. So
we'd like to thank Luke Sellars for coming on the show and actually for what he's doing for me. And Luke and I meet for free. Neither one of us is paying for this. It's just him and I getting together and, him really helping me with what I'm working on. And then us putting this out to you to show you he's a spiritual guy, dude. Spiritual guide. He really is a special, compassionate person. I've come to love him. He comes in and out of my life at the weirdest times, man. He's like there's something in the universe tells him that, okay, I need to be with Michael right now. And it just, boom, he appears in my life. It's like I have a crisis or something happens and Luke appears all of a sudden. It's really magical. So I really thank Luke Sellars for what he's been able to help me with. And then for all of you, anyone who's listening to this, I'm 100% grateful for you as well. I love you. And I hope that you're able to find some peace and really come to feel gratitude is such a wonderful emotion. It really is. It's better than anything else. It really is. I think it's the most pleasurable human emotion when you're the witness. When you get to that place where you're witnessing, this body that I'm in right now, and I witness it, and it starts to feel, my ego starts to feel gratitude, and my mind starts to feel gratitude, and my spirit and my essence start to feel gratitude. It's it's better than ecstasy. It's just like, I can't describe it. It's so beautiful to feel that level of gratitude. It doesn't mean that you're a wimp, or it doesn't mean anything like that. It just means that, you look at everyone around you and maybe they don't belong working for you. Maybe things aren't going so well, but you can still be grateful. That's the interesting about gratitude is that it's always available to you. And it's a wonderful emotion. Maybe it'll be your favorite too. So hope you enjoyed listening and hope I've helped you in some way. Blessings and peace, bro. See ya.